We're now ready to start this morning's presentation, and I'd like to introduce Rob Elkins, who will be your presenter today. Rob?
Thank you, and welcome everyone from around the world to this live training seminar on ArcGIS for developers. As was said, my name is Rob Elkins. I'm the product manager for ArcGIS Developer Products here in Redlands, California. And with me today I have Brian Golden, the lead developer and program manager for the ArcGIS Developer Network. In today's seminar, we'll introduce the architecture and different developer opportunities with ArcGIS. I will talk specifically about ArcGIS Desktop, Engine, and Server. And for each of these topics, there will be a few slides and a software demonstration. There will also be time to answer a few questions on each topic. This is an overview introductory presentation which we hope will expose you to the developer side of the ArcGIS products. If we take a look at the complete ArcGIS system, it's divided into several sections. First, Desktop GIS, which includes ArcView, ArcEditor, and ArcInfo. Embedded GIS, which is purely for developers creating custom solutions. Server GIS, which has ArcIMS for serving maps over the internet, and ArcGIS Server for building and maintaining a centrally managed geographic information system. Mobile GIS, with ArcPad for being able to go out into the field to do data capture and analysis. And then there's ArcSDE in the geodatabase at the bottom, which is the data access, handles all the data access and data administration. In this session today, we'll focus on Desktop, Engine, and ArcGIS Server. We can see from the diagram that these products have a foundation on ArcObjects and developer kits that allow you, the developer, to customize or to build your own solutions based on these ArcObjects. ArcObjects are C++ software components that ArcGIS developers create and build for use in products such as ArcView and ArcGIS Server. ArcObjects are also available for you, the developer, to use to build your own application or to customize one of the ArcGIS applications. Sometimes I like to make the comparison between ArcObjects and toy Lego blocks. Just as individual Lego blocks are snapped together to build something unique, the same is true of ArcObjects. Developers can build custom GIS applications by hooking together the different ArcObjects. There are literally thousands of individual objects that make up ArcObjects, and in this seminar we will not be able to cover them in detail, but I would like to take some time to talk about how the same core set of ArcObjects can be reused by ArcGIS Desktop, ArcGIS Engine, and ArcGIS Server. This diagram shows the broad categories of ArcObjects that comprise ArcGIS Desktop. As you'll see, a major component of these categories is the user interface ArcObjects, along with the applications and extensions at the top of the diagram. By user interface, I mean all the dialogues, property pages, geoprocessing tools, and windows that make up the applications of ArcView, ArcEditor, and ArcInfo. In comparison, if we take a look at ArcGIS Engine, we'll see there are four common categories between Desktop and Engine. These are the base services, data access, map analysis, and map presentation. With ArcGIS Engine, there is no user interface or applications provided, but there is a collection of developer components that you can use to build your own application with its unique look and feel. Later in this seminar, I'll show you how you can build your own user interfaces with these ArcGIS Engine developer components. If we look at ArcGIS Server, there are the same core categories of ArcObjects and a web developer framework for working with the ArcObjects on a server to build websites that expose the GIS functionality. These common ArcObjects categories contain the majority of ArcGIS GIS functionality that we expose to end users and also make available to developers. This commonality of functions between ArcGIS products is important for developers to understand, since it means that when working in a particular category, much of your development effort and code can easily be transferred to another ArcGIS product with little modifications on your part. This architecture provides many possibilities for the sharing and reuse of ArcObjects, either created by ESRI or by you, the developers in the GIS community. The ESRI's ArcGIS system strives to be a complete system for developers to build a wide range of solutions. You, the developer, can configure and customize ArcGIS desktop applications such as ArcMap or ArcGlobe, build and deploy custom desktop solutions with ArcGIS Engine, create GIS web applications for use over the internet with ArcGIS Server. This rich set of functionality, though, is not a closed, locked-down system. The architecture enables you, the developer, to extend it with your own ArcObjects that could work with Desktop, Engine, and Server. The best way to gain an understanding of ArcObjects is to explore the resources available in the different developer kits. Libraries of appropriate ArcObjects are packaged into developer kits, providing a common developer experience across Desktop, Engine, and the Server products. The developer kits include detailed help systems, object library diagrams, sample code, and several utilities and tools to help you be more productive with the system. The developer kits are included with each product and can be installed on your machine, or the latest version can be accessed over the internet at the new ESRI Developer Network website, or more commonly referred to as EDN or Eden for short. Along with the new EDN website is a new program focused on developers. The ESRI Developer Network program is an annual subscription that you can buy that gives you the different ESRI developer products at a reduced cost for development and testing purposes, along with all of the developer resources available to build a wide range of solutions with ArcGIS. Let's take a look now at the new EDN website. This website is open to the public and freely available. It has a goal of bringing together all the different developer resources from other online ESRI websites into a central spot that we can update and provide the best possible resources to you, the developer. You don't have to be a member of the program to actually access the website. The website, of course, allows us to provide current recent information, such as information about this live training seminar you're participating in. Also has a documentation library. This is where you would find all the ArcObjects developer help topics, along with ArcSDE, ArcIMS, and ArcWeb Services. We've also archived the different versions of the help system, so as we know that everyone's not using the same version of ArcGIS. So if you're still working with 8.3 or 9.0, you can access those libraries or the current version, ArcGIS 9.1. Now with all these ArcObjects being documented in one spot, we needed to implement a new and better searching mechanism to find information. So I just performed a search and on the IMAP interface. It very quickly found some results. I can filter this search based on version or on language, but I was able to quickly find the IMAP interface. It takes me to the developer help system. We see that it's part of the Cardo library, and it talks about what products this interface is available with, when to use it, and its members. If we were to go to the Cardo library, we could get an overview of this whole library and how it fits into the system and where these ArcObjects can be used, along with object model diagrams and other information. Now, one of the goals of this EDN website is not to just be ESRI providing information, but to be a place where an online community can grow and develop and be helping each other, members of the community. We have a media center where we post videos. Here are some of the most recent videos and their topics. These are short videos that are actually created by our development teams. They give you kind of an inside view and your chance to hear the developers talk about some of the different projects that they're working on. We also have discussion forums, which are a great way to post questions and have other members of the developer community answer your questions. These have been organized by categories such as ArcGIS Desktop, Engine, and Server. Once again, anyone can post questions and answer questions on these forums. It doesn't cost anything. You will need to log in with your free ESRI Global login. Now, one of my favorite parts of this website is the code exchange. This is where ESRI's developers and product teams can post sample code, but also you, the developers, can share your best practices in sample scripts. There's many different languages that the samples are available with. There's also different categories and different products. But if I wanted to search for a sample about adding data to my map programmatically, I could search for add shapefile on the code exchange, and it quickly found information about programmatically adding a shapefile. This happens to be a VBA sample that I could use inside of ArcView. And we'll actually use this sample code in a little bit. But let's go back to the slides here. So ArcGIS, the Eden website is a great place for getting more information and for learning your way around the ArcGIS developer offerings. Well, let's now focus on ArcGIS Desktop. As we mentioned, ArcGIS Desktop fits into the ArcGIS system along with the embedded and server solutions. ArcGIS Desktop is a suite of GIS software products: ArcView, ArcEditor, and ArcInfo. These three different products all include 4 applications: ArcMap, ArcCatalog, ArcScene, and ArcGlobe. These applications are used by GIS professionals for a broad range of geographic data management, spatial data creation and editing, cartographic visualization in 2D or in 3D. There are also several extensions to ArcGIS Desktop that provide specialized functionality, such as spatial or 3D analysis. As the case with other ArcGIS products, ArcObjects is the core foundation and development environment when working with the ArcGIS Desktop applications or extensions. Each of the desktop applications, for example ArcMap, includes Microsoft's Visual Basic for applications, or more commonly known as VBA. VBA is the integrated customization environment when working inside of ArcGIS Desktop. In addition, however, developers can use Visual Studio.net or a COM programming language to customize and extend the applications. But first, let's take a look at probably the most common way that developers customize ArcGIS Desktop, which is through the applications themselves. You can customize the user interface without writing any code by dragging and dropping the different commands, menus, and toolbars, or write simple VBA macros with the VBA editor. Through VBA, you can leverage the application framework that exists in ArcGIS Desktop for doing a wide range of different tasks, such as data management, map presentation tasks, and extending the application with custom dialogues or specialized forms or commands or tools to help your users get their job done. Using VBA inside ArcGIS Desktop is pretty straightforward, and you can accomplish the majority of your customization tasks with relatively little development effort writing a VBA script or macro. These VBA scripts and macros are saved along with the other features of the map in the ArcGIS Desktop map document. More advanced developers can further extend or enhance ArcGIS Desktop with custom layers, for example, or new sets of symbols or symbology, new dialogues, custom data sources, or new toolbars. These types of customization require more than VBA. You'll need to use either Visual Basic 6 or Visual Studio.net. I personally would recommend VB.net or the C# language to create a new DLL or .NET assembly, which could be plugged into the desktop application as a new control or component. Developers can also create and sell extensions to ArcGIS Desktop. Several ESRI business partners around the world have built extensions to the desktop products that they have marketed and built especially for certain industries or a certain type of user. For example, telecommunications or public safety extensions, or extensions for doing crime analysis or managing utilities, transportations, and land record systems. A few suggestions first on getting started with ArcGIS Desktop as a developer. First, it's important to remember there's a lot of power in the applications themselves without writing any code. It's important to understand what can be done. What are the tools that are already available for you before you trying to start creating a tool that perhaps might already exist. I'd hate for you to spend that time creating a tool that's already there. Now, don't overlook VBA. It's a great place to get started, to learn your way around the application framework and the ArcObjects object model. I encourage you to start with VBA when you're getting started with ArcObjects. Also, even when once you've made that move to Visual Studio, VBA is a great place to prototype or debug your code. Another key to success is to leverage the large amount of sample code inside the help system or on the EDN website. Let's actually use that sample code that we found on the EDN website about adding data to a map. So if we go back to the EDN website, I'm going to go ahead and copy that code here, and it tells me I need to paste this into the VBA, to a VBA macro. So I'm going to open up ArcMap. This is just standard ArcMap. It has no data loaded, and I could have my users have to browse and navigate for data, but I could automate that task by going and creating a macro. So I'm going to go to the Tools menu, Macros. We'll create a new macro called Add Data, and I'll paste that code into there. And the only change I'll need to make to this code is I need to point it to the data on my file system. And I've got some data on my D drive. So this will deal with the connection to the shapefile and handle the ArcObjects for dealing with the workspace factory, the layer, and then adding that layer to the map. So if we go back to ArcMap, let's run that macro, and the shapefile is automatically loaded into the map. So this is a pretty simple task that we've automated with VBA, but by automating different tasks throughout your daily work, it can definitely increase your productivity and help the more novice user work with the powerful tools available inside of ArcMap. Now, once you want to go and build an extension or more advanced functionality, you need to use Visual Studio. I'd like to show you an example now of a custom component created with Visual Studio that actually leverages the ArcObjects of the display and the cartography, but also some of the more advanced objects that deal with the Spatial Analyst extension. In this project here, I've got a new toolbar called the Ocean Tools. These are my new custom components that were developed with Visual Studio. In this map, I have several raster data sets loaded that have information on the ocean currents, the values, and the directional flow of the ocean currents. So if we zoom in a little bit here on the Gulf of Mexico, let me show you the first tool that I have, which allows me to easily get the cell value from this raster. If I drag a box, it'll show me, it'll put a label on each cell saying what the value is for that area. If we zoom back out a little bit, show you another tool which deals with the directional flow and dynamically places a label showing the flow of the water in that cell. So if we do another one here around Florida, we can see how the water, the current ocean trends are around Florida. Well, let's zoom back out to the Caribbean and show you a really cool, unique tool that they've developed to help do some spatial analysis. And they built a property page here that allows me to set the maximum drift time, and then it shows that the track of an object drifting in the ocean. We'll pick magenta and make it a dark color. So if I click down here in the Caribbean, it'll calculate where the object would float or drift in 6 months based on the ocean trends. So if I zoom to that layer, we see that we could actually travel quite a distance based on the current ocean flow. Let's pan over a little bit and zoom out and show the whole Atlantic Ocean. And if we bring back up that custom tool, this time let's change it to 12 months and make it red. And if I click over here off the west coast of Africa, we can see that I'd actually make my way across the Atlantic, hit a current, and kind of loop back. We pick over here off of Spain, the coast of Spain, see a similar flow happening. So you could actually do quite a bunch of different analysis to show the different trends. Let me show a different part of the world here. We'll use a bookmark to navigate to the Pacific Ocean, and I'm here in Southern California, so if I was to click there, we can see that I would float past Hawaii and almost all the way over to Japan in a long 12-month journey. This is an example of a custom component using Visual Studio to create these new custom tools. So before I turn the time over to Brian to take a few of your questions, we see a picture here of Brian that they've just recently taken. ArcGIS Desktop is built from the common collection of ArcObjects that are available not only in Desktop but in Engine and in ArcGIS Server. Developers can use VBA to customize ArcGIS Desktop or create a new custom component like those ocean tools that can be plugged into one of the ArcGIS Desktop applications. Well, I noticed that we've got actually participants in this session from around the world, and several of you have submitted questions. So I'm going to turn the time over to Brian to address a few of your questions.
Thanks a lot, Rob. You're right, we do have quite a few questions coming in, and I guess you could categorize them in a couple different areas. Some based on the EDN website, and then just some general questions about how to get started with developing on ArcObjects in this platform. So the first question is Nancy from Bartlettsville, and also Mike from Fresno. They both asked the same question. Is a subscription necessary to access the document library? Or actually, you might expand this by saying, is it necessary to access the EDN website? The answer is no. The EDN website is available for everyone free of charge. So anyone can use their web browser to view the website and read the documentation library for API help and information on how to get started with the platform. Also, as Rob mentioned, the code samples in a code exchange, the media center, the discussion forums, and so forth are all available for people to use free of charge. If you'd like to participate in the website by contributing content to the discussion forums or adding comments to our videos, we do ask you to log in, but that login is also free. Another question came in from Harold in Boise. What happened to ArcObjects Online? Does EDN replace it? The answer is yes. EDN does replace the ArcObjects Online website. With our 8X software, 8.3, as we move to 9.0, you probably noticed from using ArcObjects Online, we have SDE Online, we had a ArcGIS Developer Help website, we also have Arc Web Services Help website, with a lot of developer resources that would help you use our platform, but they're all spread out across our organization or on different web pages. Our goal with Eden is to really help you pull all of the resources together, help you realize the synergistic relationship between a lot of the software so you can build a better solution across the platform. So in doing that, we've pulled all of the developer resources onto the same website, and that's the EDN website, which Rob just showed you. So if you have bookmarks that took you to ArcObjects Online, those would now be redirected to the EDN website. And Dan from Springfield has another question, which I guess kind of further clarifies this relationship with the EDN website and also the software library, or when you purchase the actual EDN membership. So his question is, does does membership in the ESRI Developer Network come with a software license, or does it cost extra? Beyond shared scripts on ArcObjects, does the EDN have help tools or resources for new developers? So just to make very clear about this, the EDN website is free for everyone to use. You do not have to be a current ESRI user of our software to access the website. You might use the website just to evaluate the software and make a decision that you want to use the platform. It's available for everyone. Once you purchase an EDN subscription, the EDN subscription includes all of our software for development use. So as Rob mentioned already, and he'll continue to do, you'll receive a copy of software for ArcIMS, ArcGIS Server, ArcGIS Engine, Arc Web Services, and ArcGIS DE for development purposes. And then you can still use the EDN website. So we have another quick question I'd like to talk about, and I think this one is actually a good transition because we've already talked a little bit about the platform, and Rob is just about to start talking about ArcGIS Engine. So Henry from Thunder Bay says, we are used to using map objects for development. What products, in conjunction with ArcObjects, is required to make standalone products? With that, is there a migration plan to move existing users of map objects to ArcObjects development? That's a really good question, and that's something that we hear a lot. If you look at map objects, ArcGIS Engine is very similar to map objects. Rob is going to talk about this in detail. In essence, it's a series of developer controls that you can use to embed in an application. We used to use the slogan of putting a map in your app with map objects. You can do the exact same thing with ArcGIS Engine. I think that something I like to highlight is a lot of our customers find that a very good workflow is to sit down with ArcGIS Desktop, author a map, add layers to it, symbolize it, create styles and so forth, and then they can take that map document, create a map, an ArcGIS Engine-based application, put the map inside of that, the map control, and then use that. So they really work very well in conjunction with each other. You can author maps inside of ArcGIS Desktop, and then you can use those maps inside of an engine-based application. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Rob.
Okay, so that's a great setup for our next topic today, which is the ArcGIS Engine. ArcGIS Engine is relatively new, so I want to spend some time actually defining what it is. ArcGIS Engine is a comprehensive set of cross-platform ArcObjects used to deliver custom GIS mapping and mapping applications, or to embed geospatial functionality into existing desktop solutions. ArcGIS Engine applications can vary from simple map viewers to GIS editing and analysis programs, each with a custom, unique user interface. That's because they're created by different developers. In cases where users need specialized access to GIS, ArcGIS Engine applications provide an alternative solution to the out-of-the-box software packages that require a lot of training and time to get accustomed to the tools available. ArcGIS Engine consists of two products: a software developer kit called the Engine Developer Kit. This is what you'll use to build your standalone application. You can use COM, .NET, Java, or C++ to build your solution. The ArcGIS Engine Runtime is the redistributable infrastructure required for the execution of your custom engine application. ArcGIS Engine was designed as a developer product with the goal of easy development, testing, and deployment of custom standalone solutions. Being a developer product without any pre-built applications, let's take a look again at the categories of ArcObjects available to you as an ArcGIS Engine developer. The first is the base services. This is the foundation for all ArcObjects and includes some of the core features of the geometry library and the ability to display and manipulate those geometries in a map. ArcGIS Engine supports all the traditional ESRI, vector, and raster formats, including full access to the geodatabase and all of its different feature types and relationships. Next is map analysis. These ArcObjects allow developers to build powerful applications with intelligence and working with data to solve real-world spatial problems. Map presentation is the next category, and the ArcGIS Engine supports the same high-quality cartography available with ArcMap. This includes the objects for creating and manipulating maps, layers, page layouts, symbols, and labels. ArcGIS Engine can read and create the ArcMap document file, referred to as an MXD. So many developers use ArcMap as the authoring tool to save time in their coding. Instead of having to programmatically create all those layers, they can author the map in ArcMap and then use it with their ArcGIS Engine solution, and it has the same high-quality look and feel as an ArcView solution. Now remember that the engine does not come with all the user interface objects available with ArcGIS Desktop, but there are several developer components and a collection of commands and tools that developers can use to help build an application. In a few moments I'll show you how we can do this inside of Visual Studio.net, but these developer components and controls are available as ActiveX controls, Visual Java Beans, Motif widgets for cross-platform development, along with the .NET Windows form controls. There are many different types of applications that you could build with the ArcGIS Engine. The majority of the engine solutions are visual applications with a graphical user interface. These could be traditional Windows-style applications or a solution with a mapping solution for Red Hat Linux or Sun Solaris. However, you don't have to create an application that is solely focused on the map and on data display. You could take advantage of some of the rich analysis objects and build a console application that does some processing on spatial data without having to have a map display with interactive tools and commands. There are also many developers that are taking the engine components and embedding them into an existing application which previously didn't have any GIS tools but possibly had a spatial component that can now be linked into the ArcObjects. To build one of these applications with ArcGIS Engine, it all starts with your choice of a development environment, such as Eclipse for Java or Visual Studio.net. Programmatically, you'll use ArcObjects, the ArcObjects that are available inside the engine runtime. You'll incorporate your data and maps into the application or the data and maps of the end user of your solution. You should definitely leverage the controls and commands to help create your user interface. Once you've built this solution, brought it all together, and compiled it into your application, it can be deployed to a number of users. Each of these end users of your solution will need to have the ArcGIS Engine runtime installed. However, they can leverage an existing ArcGIS desktop license if available, or if not, they'll need to get one of the new cost-effective engine runtime licenses. The engine runtime as a product only contains the core ArcObjects that enable the execution of custom solutions. There is no application or out-of-the-box solution with the engine runtime. The standard engine runtime provides the core functionality of all ArcGIS applications. In a lot of ways, this functionality is similar to what's available programmatically with ArcView, except without the ArcView applications and user interface. The standard engine runtime can be enhanced with extensions to the engine runtime. Extensions for read-write access to multi-user geodatabases, along with advanced functionality for 3D visualization, spatial and network analysis. Let's take a look now at building an engine application from scratch. In this demonstration, I'm going to use VB.net as part of Visual Studio. I have a blank VB form here. In my toolbox, I have loaded some of these ESRI provided engine commands to help. And to start off with, I'm going to use the map control. Now I can interactively drag and drop this control on the form. This is what I'll use to display my map. To help my users know what layers are in my map, I'm going to add a table of contents, or the TOC control. I want to have some tools, so I'm going to add the toolbar control. The toolbar control can host your own custom tool, or you can use it with any of the ESRI provided tools. We provide about 120 tools at the current release, and we're constantly adding more tools as requested by developers. So if we go back to the map control, I'm going to bring up its property page and add a map document that I've created. I'll say OK to that window. We now need to tell the table of contents that it needs to use the layers in the map control. And .NET's given my map control by default the name AX Map Control 1. I'll say OK to that. I'll set a few properties of the toolbar control, saying it needs to work with the map control, and add some tools. Now I'm going to add some of the more commonly used ESRI provided tools. Of course, I could write these tools myself, but to save my coding effort for the more unique part of my application, I'll just go ahead and drag on the zoom in and the pan commands. See, there's lots of map navigation, such as full extent. We also have tool sets. These are logical groupings of tools, so the different graphical elements. These tool sets are very similar to the toolbars in ArcMap. I can also create custom menus for the toolbar. We give you a couple menus as examples. I'm going to add the selection menu and all of its commands. We'll say OK and dismiss this. go ahead and build and run this application in debug mode. Let me move down the window to fit inside the display of this presentation. And it's loaded the map. This is a Yellowstone, this is a map of Yellowstone National Park, the different vegetation types. And I can zoom in or zoom out. I've got these rich graphical tools that I've added that I can work with. There's also the selection tool, so I can select all, zoom to the selected. We'll now clear the selection. Now this map actually is created for use in layout. So let's go ahead and stop this application, and instead of using just the 2D mapped data view, we're going to use the page layout view. If this data was 3D data, I could leverage the scene control or the globe control for doing global visualization. But let's add the page layout control to my VB form. We'll right click on it, bring up its property, and tell it to use that Yellowstone layout map document. We'll need to reset the properties of the table of contents control to now work with the page layout. We go to the toolbar control to do the same. And we're going to remove some of these graphical tools that we don't need in page layout mode, and we're going to add some of the tools that deal with navigating a page layout. So we'll add those to the map. Now these are all the ESRI provided tools, but I could also build my own custom command. And I've done a custom command that does vegetation analysis on the map. I'll show you this tool in action. So let's go ahead and compile and run the application. And this custom tool will allow me to click on the map, and then it'll do a buffer, find all the features within 1,000 feet of where I clicked, determine the vegetation within inside that buffer, and then calculate the acreage of the different types of vegetation. So if we zoom in the map a little bit here into this part of Yellowstone, click the custom tool, it did the buffer, calculated the different vegetation types, and displays inside this text element the square footage of the different types of vegetation. So this is an example of, without any coding at all, I was able to build a engine application with .NET that leveraged the pre-built ESRI developer components. Now these components, as I mentioned, are available not only to just Windows developers, but there is a Visual Java Bean version and cross-platform C++ version. This here is a Java application that uses the Visual Java Bean version. And this application actually does some fairly advanced analysis based on the topography and the water system of this area. I have here a couple watersheds that are being calculated, and to help do that I have a custom tool which I call the raindrop tool. As I click a couple points on the map, I can then calculate the directional flow if water was to hit and then flow in that area. So we can see the different watersheds where they might be based on if I put these points and then calculate the flow. We'll do a couple over here on the other side of the map to see this is a different area. The water flows actually into a different area than these other water sources. I can also do analysis either in 3D to deal with line of sight. So if I wanted to calculate what I could see from a certain point on the map, I've built a Java tool here that allows me to set some properties, deal with the angle of view, and then if I was to then click on the map and drag a line out, seeing what could I see from that point, I'm doing the intervisibility function based on the terrain, and it shows there in yellow the areas that I can see, and then the areas that I cannot see, of course, are not covered. This would be a useful tool if I needed to calculate a good spot to put a lookout tower, or if I was doing search and rescue or some type of command post, what would be visible from the different areas. This is some of the more advanced analysis that's available to engine developers since they have the same core set of rich ArcObjects available to them. So if we go back to our slide presentation, a quick summary here before we take a couple more of your questions. The ArcGIS Engine is really built for developers to create custom desktop solutions, applications that are going to be residing on individual users' machines, either with .NET, Java, COM, or cross-platform C++, We give you lots of developer controls and commands to jumpstart your development. It's also important to remember, if anyone has done any ArcObjects work with ArcGIS Desktop, by default now they're ArcGIS Engine developers. As long as you use the engine objects, you can start creating solutions or move your code from a desktop solution into a standalone solution with ArcGIS Engine. But I see there we've had a few more questions come in, so I'm going to turn the time over to Brian to address some of those questions.
Thanks, Rob. You're right. We have quite a bit of activity on the questions. The first question I'd like to answer is from Jay Young in Calgary. He asked, what languages do you prefer to use for developing standalone applications? Java, C#, C++, etc. This is a great question and something that we hear quite a bit about. Really, the answer there really isn't a perfect answer. One language over another. But basically, what you should do is use the language that you're most comfortable with, the language that you're most proficient in. All of our desktop customizations are available through COM or .NET. When you work with ArcGIS Engine, we have the same capabilities for .NET, COM, or Java developers. So really what you should do is just take a look at the language that you're most proficient in and you're most comfortable in, maybe the one that best suits the type of application development that you're doing, and then choose that one. The next question, a couple people have really asked similar questions. So Sam in Redlands and also Gennady in Anchorage both ask how to deploy customizations to their developers. So Sam asks, when using .NET languages to extend an application like ArcMap, where do you deploy the DLL or executable for the project you create? And Gennady asked, how hard is it to deploy this new DLL to customers? Really, you'll find this is quite easy. Any type of DLL that you create has to be registered with COM in order for it to work with ArcObjects, even if you're using .NET. So once that DLL is registered, information about the classes that you've authored inside that DLL are entered into the registry. When ArcMap or ArcCatalog or maybe ArcGIS Engine or ArcGIS Server want to use one of the classes that you've created, it looks in the registry, find the location of the DLL that hosts your class, and then it uses that location to load the DLL into memory and then ask for the object that you've created. So really all it's a matter of doing is creating your DLL, putting in the best location based on your application deployment, trying to keep your DLLs together, and then getting everything registered in the registry correctly. Amnon in Fort Collins also asked a good question. Why is the default search engine on the EDN website the documentation library rather than the entire EDN website? Based on our usability studies, we've determined that most of our customers want to look for help in the documentation library. So they're looking for information on an interface, a class, or how to get started doing something. So that's why we've made that our default entry point into the EDN website search. Now we are doing quite a few enhancements to the search on the website. So you're going to see some new search options. And in doing that, we're going to change that to later to the entire EDN library. Henry in Thunder Bay asks a very good question. Is map objects being phased out? And if so, what is the timeline and what is the replacement platform? As Rob just discussed, ArcGIS Engine is a very similar platform to map objects. It's a great platform for building embedded GIS capability into your application. The same slogan we used to use in putting a map in your application. So if you, for Henry or anyone else that's interested, if you go to the ESRI support site, if you look under the map objects area, you can find something called a product life cycle. And in this document, we articulate that the current version that we've released is the version 2.3, and we released that in July of 2004. This last September, we put that on extended support, and as we move forward, that's going to be moving into a mature support, and at some point it's going to be retired, but we haven't made that decision yet. So people that are using map objects right now, you're safe to continue using map objects, and we're still supporting that platform, but as we move forward, you're probably going to want to start thinking about using ArcGIS Engine as your developer environment. And I have one last question I'd like to answer. Jamie in Miami asks, do you have multi-user licenses for the EDN subscription? Are they available at a lower price for the multiple users on the same site? The answer is no. Our licensing model for the EDN software library for the subscription is one license per developer. Developers cannot share those licenses. So if you have 5 people in your development organization and they're all doing ESRI development, they all want to use an EDN subscription, you have to have 5 licenses. If you find that one of those developers moves on to a different part of your organization or they leave your organization, then you can, and then you hire someone new, then you can give them that license. but the licenses are for one person, one license per developer. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Rob.
Yeah. And one of our goals with the EDN subscription model is to make the access to the software as easy as possible and to make it affordable as possible. So we're actually, as part of your EDN subscription, you're getting lots of software at a very reduced cost. So the third and final topic today is ArcGIS Server. And ArcGIS Server is relatively new and it sometimes gets confused a little bit with ArcIMS. So we're going to take some time to talk about what it is and then show a brief demonstration of building an ArcGIS Server application. We really see ArcGIS Server as the platform for delivering enterprise GIS applications that are centrally managed, support multiple users, and include advanced GIS functionality, much more than the functionality available in ArcIMS. This doesn't mean that ArcGIS Server is replacing ArcIMS, but is a complementary product to deal with the more geographic information systems, not just internet map publishing. ArcGIS Server exposes the full depth of ESRI's geospatial functionality using open standards-based programming interfaces to ArcObjects, such as Java, .NET, and XML web services. Developers can use ArcGIS Server to build web applications, web services, and other enterprise solutions within standard .NET and J2EE application servers. ArcGIS Server can also be used to deliver data and services to ArcGIS Desktop or ArcGIS Engine clients. ArcGIS Server consists of two components, a GIS server and an application developer framework known as the ADF. The GIS server hosts the ArcObjects for use by web and desktop applications and provides a scalable environment for running ArcObjects on a server that can serve many users over the local area network or the internet. The ADF supports the building and deploying of .NET or Java applications that use ArcObjects running within the GIS server. The ADFs include software developer kits with web controls, templates, developer help, and several code samples and scenarios to help you get started. If we look again at the functionality of ArcGIS Server, we'll see it's the same as ArcGIS Engine and ArcGIS Desktop. But instead of desktop applications or ActiveX controls, ArcGIS Server has the web developer framework for building web applications. There are many possibilities for developers with ArcGIS Server and these web applications or web services. You could build solutions that deal with advanced mapping and high-quality cartographic production and output, dealing with many addresses and geocoding and batch matching of addresses, dealing with geometric networks and advanced feature types, such as linear referencing in a transportation system. You also have access to those same ArcObjects, so you can do spatial and 3D analysis, and even edit a multi-user version geodatabase from inside a web browser. So let's take a look at how the different pieces fit together. The first part is the GIS server, which has two parts, the server object manager and the server object containers. There can be several different server object containers depending on the scalability of your solution. This is where the ArcObjects are and where the actual work takes place. Next is the web application server. The application server serves up the web application that you've built with the Java or .NET ADF. The web applications work with the GIS server and any clients to the server. Clients to ArcGIS Server could be internet browsers working over the internet, or custom engine solutions or desktop applications over the internet or through the local area network. Let's see how this all works. The client makes a request of the server using the tools that the developer has exposed in the custom web application. The web server and web application process the request and pass it on to the GIS server. The server object manager handles the multiple requests coming in and passes the work off to the appropriate ArcObject. The ArcObjects then send the request back through the GIS server to the web application, which knows the correct way to present the results of that information, either as a new map or a new tabular information or new graphics that can be displayed inside the web application. One of the keys to success with ArcGIS Server is understanding ArcObjects. You need to know about ArcObjects, and a great way to do that is to take advantage of the developer resources provided. There are several step-by-step tutorials and developer scenarios to help you build your first ArcGIS Server application. Being a server solution, you or someone in your organization will need to understand Internet programming languages such as ASP.NET on Windows or JSP for support on Linux or Solaris. There are also several server configuration options for administering the accounts, protocols, and security that you'll need to take into consideration. And always remember the architecture of ArcGIS Server and that you're now working with the same core set of ArcObjects, however, you're programming remotely against them. So let's take a look at a simple ArcGIS Server web application that I'm working on that deals with some of the trees and getting information on the trees that have been planted in a city, and this is being done with ArcGIS Server and a web application. So I've opened up here my Visual C# project. This is an ASP.NET project, and I have an ESRI toolbox that, like Engine, had several different controls. Here I have web controls for use on a web browser. And I've used the map control in this application, the table of contents, a scale bar, and the toolbar with some of the tools. I've connected this web map control to use a web service which actually originated as layers of data stored inside ArcSDE geodatabase. I then created a map document with ArcMap and then published that ArcMap document with the ArcGIS server. Let's go ahead and run this in debug mode, and it fires up Internet Explorer, connects to the server, and I see the data that I'm dealing with here with this urban forest and the trees that have been, the trees location and types that have been collected. Now actually, since I have this data in a geodatabase, I can use the ArcObjects to make request of that geodatabase and get more information out. So I'm going to add some more web components to my map here. I'll add a button, and when I click this button I want something to happen, and what's going to happen is it's going to go out and figure out, based on the current extent of the map, what are all the trees that are in the current display. Once it has found all those trees, it will then figure out the type of trees they are based on an attribute stored in the geodatabase, and then display the name of the type of tree in my list box. So I've got some code that I've already written. I'm going to paste into the click event of the button. This is standard ArcObjects code that deals with the geodatabase, setting up the spatial filter and clipping out just the ones within the map extent, and then getting a feature cursor to go through all those trees, pulling out the names and putting them in the list box. So let's go ahead and build my solution. We'll go ahead and run it inside of debug mode, and it'll bring up Internet Explorer, connect to the ArcGIS server. If I zoom in a little bit here and I run my button, it tells me the type of trees that are currently in the display. If I zoom into a different area, rerun the button, I get a different set of trees in this area. So simple example, yet showing the power that's available to developers because they have the whole geodatabase and map display and map analysis ArcObjects available to them with the ArcGIS server. So if we go back to the slides, as a brief summary here before we wrap up this presentation, we've talked about ArcGIS Desktop, which is VBA is included. It's a great way to customize the user interface and to improve productivity of using the ArcGIS applications. You can also create custom components using Visual Studio. The ArcGIS Engine is purely for developers to create their own custom desktop application with not just COM or .NET, but now Java and C++ for cross-platform solutions. Then ArcGIS Server is now taking those same set of Arc objects, making them available on the server, and accessing them with a web application with .NET or with Java. We have a few moments left, so I'm going to turn the time back over to Brian to address some of the questions that we've received on some of the different topics we've discussed today.
Thanks a lot, Rob. The questions, as you said, just keep on coming in. So let me knock out a couple of them. The first one is from Carlos. He asks, what features exist for easier testing with ArcGIS Engine? This is an interesting question because really what we're doing with ArcGIS Engine is we're providing you some core GIS objects and some controls. What you don't get is an application development framework. So you can use Windows Forms, you can use a Java developer environment to build your application framework and then embed your map control or some GIS objects inside of it. We also don't provide testing frameworks for ArcGIS Engine. So what you can do with ArcGIS Engine is design and write your code, but then you should use standard software development practices like using NUnit or some other unit type of testing for your development. So we don't provide anything out of the box for testing ArcGIS Engine, so to speak, that really marries with your programming language. Another quick question is Amy in Fort Washington. She has something that I think is sometimes a little bit confusing, so I'd like to talk about it for a minute. She asks, is ArcGIS Engine a separate product from ArcGIS, ArcView, ArcEditor, ArcInfo? And do you need to purchase them separately? ArcGIS Engine is a separate product from ArcGIS Desktop. When you look at ArcGIS Desktop, ArcGIS Desktop is a product. It includes several different applications, including ArcMap and ArcCatalog, ArcScene, ArcGlobe, and so forth. It also includes different licensing levels, and those licensing levels correspond to ArcView, ArcEditor, and ArcInfo. So you purchase ArcGIS Desktop, and then you can choose the licensing level that meets your requirements. If you want to do some lightweight editing and viewing of data, then you would use ArcView. If you'd like to do some more sophisticated editing, you'd use ArcEditor. And then for all of our GIS capabilities inside of ArcGIS Desktop, you would choose an ArcInfo license. The ArcGIS Engine is just one product and it has a single license. Now, as Rob mentioned a little bit earlier, it does come with some extensions. So we have a geodatabase update extension. We also have the Network Analyst 3D extension and spatial extension as well with ArcGIS Engine. Another quick question is Gary, I believe in Golden, Colorado. He asked, does ArcGIS Engine support printing maps and exporting them to CGM? So one important aspect of building GIS applications is obviously to view GIS data on your screen, similar to what Rob has been showing, and also editing and manipulating data. But it's also a very important part is cartographic production. ArcGIS Engine does support printing maps. It also does support exporting them to CGM, and we can also support CGM images as symbols inside of ArcGIS Engine, or including ArcGIS Server and Desktop. So Gary, if you'd like to, you can swing by the EDN developer website, do a search on printing with CGM, and you should be able to find some sample code and some other documents to help you out. I want to clarify a couple other quick questions as well. Bruce in Boise, he asks, is the Network Analyst extension available to applications developed using ArcGIS Engine and ArcGIS Server? The answer is absolutely. As Rob mentioned, there are a number of different extensions that are available to the core products. So in ArcGIS Engine and ArcGIS Server, you can definitely incorporate a Network Analyst in your solution. One last question, and I think this is something that we don't really talk about a lot, because we're always thinking about building very, very sophisticated, powerful applications with Engine and large solution workflows on top of ArcGIS Desktop and so forth. Robert in Austin asks a really good question. He asks, can an application developed using ArcGIS Engine be deployed without any licensing constraints? So this would be similar to what we used to be able to do in MapObjects LT. The answer is yes. You can use ArcGIS, you can use ArcReader to deploy a free ArcGIS-based application to your customers. So if you look up the ArcReader in the EDN developer resources, it's under the controls section of our library reference, you'll find that it has a very simple, very easy to use licensing programming model, and the licensing model is very similar to MapObjects LT. You can build an application, actually I'll talk about the workflow. You can sit down with ArcMap, author a map, you can publish it to ArcReader, and then you can use the ArcReader control to load that map, and then you can do some basic customization on top of ArcReader and then deploy that to your customer free of charge. So with that, I don't think we have any other questions right now. I'll turn it back over to Rob.
All right, we're just about out of time, so I want to point out some other spots you can go to get more information. I know we tried to cover at a high level a lot of different topics today. There are several virtual campus training courses on customizing ArcGIS 9 and understanding the VBA environment. There are several instructor-led courses that start off with the very basics of kind of new beginner programmers working with VBA and ArcObjects, to the more advanced programmers that want to extend the desktop or build new solutions for Engine and Server. There are several books that are great resources for you. I recommend the Getting to Know ArcObjects book, which is a great book for those beginners that want to learn about ArcObjects and use VBA as kind of a way to learn the system. There are several developer guides for desktop, Engine, and Server, which are available in printed form or available online at the EDN website. On behalf of ESRI, I'd like to thank you all for participating in this session today.